Hi, welcome to the Leadership Development Armory, Lesson 1. Today we'll be hearing from Captain Emmanuel about planning a teen night. Please be mindful that because this was recorded on Zoom, the quality of the audio and video isn't great, but the quality of the content is exceptional. We hope that this lesson is of value to your ministry. Please enjoy.
I'm excited to share maybe what some of the things I'm sharing is actually things you're already doing, and hopefully that will serve as an affirmation that you're doing what you're doing. I believe that you're here because you love the Lord and you love the work that you do, whether you're an officer or core assistant, youth worker, DHQ staff, or a volunteer. We thank you for the work that you do. So teen night. So one of the things I'll be doing is I'll be asking some questions. So feel free to answer, and then just participate. So teen night sometimes goes by different names, YPL, and I don't know a few other different names. But we're basically talking about kids ages 13 to 18. Some people include 12-year-olds. It's really kind of what you like to do locally. But when I think about teen night, for me, it's that 13 to 18-year old range. And then sometimes I've been part of youth groups where they have 20 to 25-year-olds still part of that group. I always think if there's an opportunity to have those people serve more as leaders and helpers, that's probably more meaningful than then kind of treating them like they're 13 or 14. And then if there's an opportunity to actually have a separate night for them to be able to hang out, or afternoon can really be any time of the day to better serve them. So I like to always think, what's the purpose, what's the meaning, what's the point in getting together? If you guys don't mind sharing, what do you think the purpose of teen night is? Or how you do it locally, what do you think the purpose is?
I think the purpose is to give teenagers a space to be, or sometimes in our case, little preteens, a space to be that is not like helping watch over the littles or lost somewhere with the adults, but it's their own space.
Awesome. That's really good. Anybody else, how would you define the purpose of teen night?
I was going to add to that as well, but making it a safe space for them to be able to come to share their thoughts about God and to be open up and build the relationship with not only with God, but with their peers inside the church and their relationships.
It's really good. Thank you. Anybody else? I'll take one more. What do you think the purpose of teen night is?
Well, I think too, that is to know each other and to build up the relationship between, the teenager and the officer or the person who is in charge of the meeting. Sometimes, we know them only superficial, but it's very important to know what they think, why they come to the church, what is the relationship that they have with God. And I think it's very important, to know them. What is the idea they have? Sometimes we know them very happy, but, they have problems inside. And so we can know each other.
Mm-hmm. So the getting to know people relationships. So all those are really great answers. I always feel like as a ministry leader, it's important to know why we do stuff. Sometimes we do things because it's always happened, or I got hired on and the officer said, you're going to have teen night, but what's the purpose? We always need to know why we're gathering. And I love hearing all these different responses because they all build into one thing. And for me, I boil it down to three things. I think teen night about having a safe space for teenagers, young people, to experience community relationships where they get to know one another, and then you get to know them as well as a leader. And then secondly, a place where they can have fun in a safe way. Sometimes, or at least for a while, it feels like the church's reputation is that that's the place you go to not have fun. But I believe that fun should be part of our teaching and our planning. It doesn't have to be boring just because it's church. We can be creative, we can go crazy, we can be loud. So for me, there's a first two things: a place to connect, building community or relationships. Secondly, having fun in a safe manner. And then thirdly, for me, it's having sound biblical teaching, sound biblical learning. So we come, and so as we program, we begin to program with those ideas in mind. So if we want to help kids connect, what are the elements we're going to add into this to make sure they connect? If I want to get to know them, am I going to allow time in the program for me to actually get to have one-on-one relationships? If I want them to have fun, what if I actually plan that will help get to that goal? And obviously, if I want them to learn more about God or learn more about the Bible, if I never actually build time in, or if I give them 5 minutes out of 2 hours, I'm not sure that it's going to fulfill that end. So for me, when I look at a teen night in relationships, safe fun, and then getting sound biblical teaching. So that's the purpose for me. And then this is kind of a philosophy Jennifer and I developed, I think, when we were DYS, is every time we have an event, we wanted to have these elements. We wanted to have something that builds community, so allow kids to hang out, connect with each other, connect with adults. Also, Jennifer likes to use the word flair. What's the fun thing? What's the exciting thing? I know one of the things, for example, if you don't mind picking on Torrance, Captain Harriet, last year and this year too, the teens got to do some stuff with pumpkin smashing or carving, whatever that thing is, whatever the flair is, you just plan it and make it part of the night. The other thing I always love to say is it has to be intentional and sound biblical teaching. A lot of people have the statistics these days saying we're raising the most biblically illiterate generation. And for me, instead of being hung up and discouraged by that statistic, I can actually do something about it. Whether I have 3 kids coming to teen night or if I have 20 kids coming to teen night, I have to say, this is my opportunity to teach them about God straight from the Bible. Sometimes we shy away from actually teaching the Bible because we only want them to come for the fun part, and we think they're going to be bored once we turn the Bible. You'd be surprised that teenagers are actually open to hearing the Bible. They may not always move to living it out, but they're actually open to hearing it. So as leaders, we have to make sure we're being intentional about offering biblical teaching, and that really changes lives. One of my favorite stories from a time when I was helping out at a youth group and my wife was the youth worker is a teenager that went to a different church but started coming to our youth group routinely. And she gave us this feedback. She said the reason why she loved coming to our youth group was that it wasn't just fun and games, but that we actually took the time to learn from the Bible. This is coming from a 15-year-old. So for me, it's like, wow, this is mind-blowing, even though we could never get her on Sunday because she had her own church, but she felt like midweek she could come to our teen night. So it's not always, sometimes we assume that biblical teaching is going to scare them away. I don't think it does. And then I should have said this at the beginning. I have 3 kids, a 14-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 9-year-old. And I asked my 6-year-old, what are some of the things you'd love to see in a teen night? Because I was like, hey, if I'm talking about teens and how to do teens and I've not asked for feedback from a teenager, it's probably not a good idea. So one of the things he said is like, oh, I love sports, I love video games and pizza. But he emphasized the pizza. But what that means for me is we plan all those other things, also making sure we're allowing for some of those things that the kids look forward to. Some kids come from homes maybe where they don't always have enough food, or they come from a house like mine where they eat everything. So they're looking forward to having food when they go to teen night. So make that part of your planning as you go. So here's a question, is a point you can kind of you guys help me get some input. What are some of the elements do you think should be in a teen night? I mentioned, just a couple of things. What would you do, or what do you already do in your own teen night? What are some of the elements that you include? You can unmute and speak or type it in the chat and Summer will help it get it to us.
I try to include like question time. questions and like allow people to just answer. I try to encourage them that there's no right or wrong answer. That way they can all like get the different perspectives of everyone, and then we can come to one answer and then like really talk about the main topic of the question.
Really good, thank you.
I have one. We try to incorporate a worship time. So we'll take about 20 minutes out of our youth night to do worship, and we'll just play a whole bunch of videos from YouTube. And we just let the youth just spread out. They'll sing, they'll take the timbrels out. We have a few drummers, they'll play the drums, just allow them to be, that time to really step out of what we normally do on a Sunday and let them listen to the songs that they would listen to and worship God that way.
Awesome. Anybody else? What are some of the elements you include in your night?
Oh, sorry. No, you can go ahead.
Ladies first.
Oh, thanks. We start off with pizza and crazy bread. The kids love crazy bread from Little Caesars. I think it's gross, but they love that. And then we do some kind of activity. We try to gear it around if there's like a holiday that month or something is happening. And then we end it with a time of devotions that either has to do with what we did, like we did a few about the Olympics when it was Olympics time, and different elements like that, asking them questions and giving them time to create relationships together.
Nice. So we do a time, it's not like, I guess it's not a specific time during the night, but like all throughout the night when we do the lesson, we definitely encourage like questions to any lesson that we're teaching or anything that we're just implementing, because I feel like if you're just teaching it and they're supposed to just take it in that little bit, like, and they don't get the chance to ask their questions, because a lot of the questions that the kids ask have like, they contradict what we were just teaching, right? And if we're not open to just say, hey, yeah, ask the question, I am more than willing to figure out the answer if I don't know it, right? Because I don't know everything. But I love it when the kids just start like asking questions after we've had a lesson, because it's like, oh yeah, you're actually getting something from this lesson and it's making you question. So I love it. I love it when they ask questions all night long.
That's great, thank you.
Yeah, so I think there's one that we started doing that I think is really significant. It's a time of prayer. You know what I mean? There's like something that we think, oh, maybe the kids want to pray, because they're kind of shame or shy. But when you have like a few of them start praying like all together out loud, then it really encourages the others. So praying for the lost, like praying for their friends or family that doesn't know Jesus, we spend time with that. Praying for friends at school that are struggling, and just kind of to really trying to ingrain in them this evangelism part, where like the part of us being here is like, I want to help you guys to know Jesus, to help other people know Jesus too. So incorporating the time of prayer for the lost is like a really big thing that we just started doing that I just hold so dearly.
That's great, thank you. Wow, so many great ideas of things going on out there. So another thing I'd like to say is, so now we're kind of talking about all the different elements, is one of the biggest things in ministry is remembering that ministry is a marathon, it's not a sprint. Sometimes we feel really discouraged that we've been doing youth night for 4 weeks and we only still have 3 kids, or teen night, we still have 3 kids. So to think of it more as a marathon, you don't just sprint it, as fast as you can for 26.2 miles. You have to pace yourself. So I always think of ministry that way, to say sometimes it feels like a lot of hard work, a lot of investing in kids, and then you're not seeing the life change. Continue to be faithful and wait on God and allow God to do the work in their hearts. Sometimes when you don't think they're paying attention, they really are. And one thing about teenagers, sometimes they don't want to let you know that they think you're impacting their lives. I don't know, it's kind of a weird thing, at least that's some of my experience. So sometimes they won't give you the compliments of like, that was an awesome program, but you can hear them telling their friends they had so much fun. Like sometimes my kids do that where I say, hey, how was that? Oh, it was okay. But it's really because they, for some reason, think it's not okay for me to know that they're excited to go and do something. And then another important thing is have a plan. Like I would hope one of the things you do is every program year is to say, excuse me, you sit down and you plan. Maybe you're going to plan what are we doing for the next quarter? What are we doing for the next 6 months or the next year? However your planning goes, whether for yourself or in working with your core officer, have a plan so that you kind of know where you're going through as the seasons go by. And that also lets you know, I don't know, if you know, say in November, December, you're not going to meet for 6 weeks because of kettles and food and toys, that's included in your plan. So having a plan for the year, I highly recommend having that. And then breaking that down maybe to a quarter where you say, for this quarter, we're focusing, for example, on Bible characters, you're going to look at Hebrews 11, the heroes of faith, and you're going to study one hero of faith every week. You do that for, for 3 months or however the length, so that you kind of, know where you're going. And maybe the next season you're going to do with topics. For example, the last couple of years, there's been more and more openness, at least seems to be around, amongst us as Christians, and acknowledging some of the challenges in our community with mental health or some of the things around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Sometimes you might have your year plan, but be flexible to where you see some things that are like, we're really gonna talk about this right now. And rather than saying, no, I got my plan, I'm gonna stick to it, be willing to be flexible and maybe incorporating some of the ideas of the things that might be on the forefront of the young people. Another important thing is, if you can, when you're planning, include young people with you. I went to one of the retreats I went to recently, divisional youth retreats. They actually had some teenagers be part of the planning. And it was really cool because you could tell they were really proud to have been part of this process. But then it actually helps you hear from the young people, because maybe I really think they need to know about what it is to, making financial investments, which is not a bad topic, but maybe right now they really, really want to talk about maybe a different topic. So allowing young people to give input into your plan, I think is very helpful. Another way you could even ask, I like that you guys already had this opportunity, or some of you have them ask questions. So you could say, hey, what do you want to learn about? Do you want to, then allow them to give you the input. Then you obviously are the one to end up putting it together and making it make sense, but allowing young people to be there. The other thing I would also encourage you to do is, apart from having your year or quarterly plan, but what am I actually doing in the night? Maybe you're the only adult at teen night. So when the kids are in the chapel, you can't really just leave them and go start cooking the pizza or whatever the dinner is. So make sure you're thinking through your week. If you don't have extra leaders to hand off some of those duties, that means maybe you come in a little earlier, get all your stuff set up already. I was in a place where with a youth worker that during church, and it's not Kat, because Kat's on the phone with us. It's not Kat, she's worked as a youth worker for us. It wasn't her. But a youth worker, when the church started, for example, then he would sneak out to go prepare and get stuff for junior church ready. This is like way late. So imagine running teen night like that, it's not gonna go very well. So make sure you're planned out so that when the night goes, you kind of moving from here to here to here. Make sure you don't have too much dead time in between things. Think through your transitions. For example, if you're gonna start off for dinner, how are you gonna transition from dinner to the game, if you're gonna do a game, for example, and then from that to the Bible lesson. However, whatever different elements you have in the night, just be thinking through the transitions. Is that going to involve moving from space to space? And so you build in that transition time, or they're actually just going to stay in the same spaces, which makes the transition a little easier. So be thinking about that. And then in terms of teaching, say if you're teaching whether a Bible lesson or maybe you're somebody coming in to talk about safety, whatever that is, be thinking about, am I going to be the teacher or am I going to be inviting somebody else to come and present I love teaching, but I find a lot of value in allowing other people to come in as guests and teach my kids. And so that'll be a good practice. You could be the person that teaches all the time, but whenever you could invite guests to speak, that's always really great. And try to avoid too much dead time in between things, especially if you have new kids. If you finish one activity and then the next activity doesn't start for another 10 minutes, and they're just kind of sitting there wondering, what do I do? And these days with our phones, you see everybody now pulling out the phone they put away. So we might lose people in transition. So especially if you have new kids, try to make sure you're moving through those things as much as you can. So be planned, the overall plan, prepare for every night that you're going to be meeting, or during the day, whatever meeting time is. The other one for me that's big is promotion. Tell people about teen night. As a core officer, I realized that most of the announcements that I made from the pulpit did not actually stay in the people's ears. Really disappointing, but that's the truth. So just because you announced from the pulpit that you have teen night coming, it doesn't mean that the teens are going to come. So wherever possible, make those personal invitations. Go, you say, hey, John, I know you just turned 13. I really, really would love it if you could join us. If you have another young person that's outgoing, go with them and help them do the invite with you. Because sometimes just announcing it from the pulpit doesn't make sense. But if you could talk to people individually, sometimes you get better results than just kind of mass production. Another important thing with teen night too is your communication. When are we meeting? How long are we meeting? What are some of the activities we're going to do? For example, if you're going to have, it's October, if you're going to go to a corn maze, if you don't tell them till the very last minute, you're not going to get a lot of kids. But if you could build out that momentum, talking about it throughout the week, throughout the month, building up that excitement is really helpful. One of the things we've done in the past too is, apart from kind of having our regular nights where we meet, we have food, we have games, we have the Bible teaching, for example. We would do a monthly, and once a month we would do either a game night or an outing. So again, October, I just talked about taking kids to the corn maze. It was so much fun because they're trying to, make it away from here to here without getting lost, which most of the time they get lost. But just the idea of going out and doing something together, or if you're gonna arrange a photo scavenger hunt, that's always a lot of fun. Some of those things that you can do. And then maybe a game night. When one of our core youth workers organized a whole night that was Mario Kart racing, which was really cool. It's so much creativity went into that. And one of the ones I mentioned in the promotion here is one of those popular games, Among Us. I don't even know how to play Among Us. My kids did. But Kat, who was our youth worker in Sacramento, organized this whole Among Us thing. In fact, when I was talking to my teenage son, he said, man, we need to play that again. That's something they did like 2 years ago, maybe, but he still remembers it. So if you can be thinking through not just the things we're teaching regularly, but remember that word, the flair. What's some of the things that the kids will remember, or some of the things that will help them invite? One of the things about the exciting things, that's something they can invite their friends, maybe who are unchurched, but after they come, then you've had an opportunity to say, hey, are you coming back next week? So that can be your entry point, because sometimes our regular regular scheduled items maybe are not seemingly as exciting to them, but once they come one time and they find a community of people that love and care for them, maybe that changes it. So you know what, I'm going to try this again. So be planned out, big plan, prepare every night in promoting the night, whatever you're doing, and regularly talking to people. I don't know how you guys communicate with the kids when they're away from the church, whether you have a Facebook group, or if you have some, a text group text going, whatever it is, just make sure you have that constant communication, but especially not just communicating with the kids, but communicating with the parents as well. And hopefully you all know some of the PTM guidelines on communicating with minors. I'll just pause right there and see if there are any comments in the chat sorry, I forgot that Summer was looking at the chat for us.
Yeah, we had one question. Harriet gave an answer as well, but we'll kind of open it up, Emmanuel, if you have an answer or if somebody else has an answer. But somebody asked, do you think it's okay to make a rule stating no cell phones?
I think a rule saying no cell phones is good. What I would encourage you to do is, instead of no, it sounds like you cannot bring it at all. Maybe you have one of those creative boxes when everybody comes in, they put their phone in a box. I think that's a good rule. I know my kids have phones, my older kids have phones, and at school they have to leave their phone in their backpack the whole day. So it's not new if we make that as a rule, as long as we're being consistent. Sometimes we say no cell phones and the kids are good about it, but the adults that are helping are on their phones. So make sure it's not just a rule for the kids, but encourage your adults to also not be on their phone.
I think coming from like more of an education perspective, reminding teens especially like that they're adults, or like you're a teenager, like if you want to be treated as such, like then you have to be respectful, and like this is what you do as an adult. Adults are respectful, and you know, like we want to respect you, and so we're not going to look away when you're talking to us or be distracted by things. I think I even in my core cadet class the other day, I was talking about active listening. So really putting the emphasis on what you can do instead. And I was like, so if you were talking to me and you asked me a question, I immediately was like, and being able to model the behavior that you think would be good and show them like, this is what it looks like to be actively listening. And maybe it's more promoting that positive behavior instead of saying, don't have your phone out, like I'm going to take it, you know, might work if you're like, and especially if you make it like a little bit of a joke type thing, but being able to be like emphasizing the positive behavior that you want to see.
That's good.
Noticed, I've always had a hard time teen nights getting kids to actually bring a physical Bible, like an actual page, like a Bible, right? So when I say, hey, bring your cell phones, make sure you have your Bible app. It's also like, hey, listen, you're going to be allowed to use your cell phone during the program, but at a certain time, right? And then when it's my time, hey, look, I like my time, so give me my time. And then when it's your time, I know you like your time, I'll give you your time. You can be on the phone at the beginning of teen night when we're just kind of hanging out. Like when there's a game, you can be on your phone. If you need to make a call to your parent towards the end, get your phone out. But as long as you're asking permission and you're not just doing it, kind of like what, I'm sorry, your name is Summer, right? Kind of like what Summer just said, where it's like, hey, listen, if you respect like all the groundwork, then you're an adult. This is your phone. It's not my right for you to come here and then me take away your phone. Like, oh, took away the one thing that you've been trying to get at the whole day. Like they're at school all day, or they're at their parents' house all day. Mom's like, no phone. They're at school. They're like, no phone. Take the phone away from them. I don't want to make teen night like a prison, right? I want to make it more like a, hey, listen, come here and learn some good stuff, have some fun, but also be respectful while you do it. You know, so that's kind of my take on the cell phone. Very important.
Yeah, and I think the good thing is we can all develop ways that help us kind of fine tune that to where it's like, oh, we've been going to the season where everybody's been doing good, but now everybody's on the phone. We have to be a little more strict or come up with a different strategy. So just being like getting to know the kids we have and how easy or challenging they are makes everything a little bit easier and know what we need to do.
Also, I did want to jump in one more. There's a game that I use to play with the kids on the phone, like Jackbox games on Steam. I think that's also another one that I like to use. So like kids will have their phones all out at the beginning, and then we'll just let them get their phone jitters out with the game, Jackbox games. And then I'm like, okay, now the game's over, put your phones away. And then everybody puts their phone away.
That's good. And it looks like also in the chat, it gave an example that the core is no technology allowed, and it's the teacher says so. Again, the good thing is you get to develop those rules based on the kids that you have. Some kids don't even look at their phones; others are on them all the time. I know for my own kids, two of my kids have phones, and one of them has a much harder time not looking at their phone. So I have to threaten taking it away a few times, even at church. So, yeah. All right, and more questions, and then I have one more thing to say, but any more questions there? Okay, so maybe before I share that, here's a question that hopefully you can all answer. Can you share, you only need to give one example of either a program element or fun program element that you have done in your core that was successful. So just one example of something maybe you've done in your core, in your teen night that has been successful. A chance to brag a little bit.
Emmanuel already stole mine.
Among us, so you cannot share that one, Kat.
Yeah. So it was successful though. So that was awesome. I did do a Mario Kart one though too as well. And that was really fun because it did get everyone involved. And everyone got their energy out before we could actually sit and study the word. So that was cool.
Anybody else want to brag on yourself or somebody else you know? I'm not sure if Luke is talking to us or somebody else here muted. Maybe not us. Wow, I thought there'll be more people bragging here. What's going on?
Hey, I can brag. I'm Jenny. I am a soldier, and I'm currently going to be helping the youth leader as well. So before I became more active, we had a time of youth where it was the first youth night, and I actually was pretty surprised, and I saw that the youth had a lot of fun. And so what they had was, so they had different areas in the like in the lunch or dining hall, and each area had different games, kind of like in a way, I guess we were using like Nerf guns, and kind of making it kind of like in an arcade mode. And so the youth were given tickets, and so each ticket was like for a game, let's say 2 or 3 tickets, and they would had a shot at using they were small Nerf guns, and they were able to shoot like from afar, either like a dart or like different like figurines. So I thought that was really fun, and that got them really engaged. So yeah.
That's cool, really cool.
I remember when I was in Southern California, I think it was Pomona Core that did it, and it was like a night with Jesus or whatever. And I think it was like Joel Garcia that was the kind of like the MC for the whole night, but like they had invited a bunch of just core in the area, and I think Captain Javier was there at that time. And I remember going there with a bunch of my teens and a bunch of the guys from the ARC, and where were we? We were in, I was in Inglewood, and the guys that were coming from the ARC were coming from Long Beach. And we went to this event, and it was just, there was good devotion. There was like, I don't even remember like the games. There was like more like war games where like we all sat and then we watched somebody from a section go up and then compete. There's actually a picture of me on Facebook getting to pop water balloons in Michael Bryan's face. So kind of like really excited about that. But like I remember the kids that I took that night were just they were nonstop talking, and all those kids, they didn't even go to our church. They went to like this place called Westwood, which was a TLP, and it was just like, wow, that was cool. And actually that night spearheaded the rest of my youth group, because all the kids that came with me that night then came back the next week for my youth group, and then the next week after that, because they were just so like in touch with what we did that night. So I was like, oh, that's awesome.
So I'll just say, I'll just share a couple of the things in the chat. We have IKEA, mall, and Target scavenger hunt, full-scale Nerf wars with blow-up obstacles and dimmed lights, dodgeball competition between teen and young adults, including the officers. I'm not sure what chicken golf is. I'd be very intrigued. Egg roulette, prom progressive dinner. Okay, there's a lot of stuff going on in the chat.
I have something, Emmanuel or Captain.
Go ahead.
When I was a young captain, Harriet might remember some of this. When I was a young captain, I was stationed in the Phoenix area. And if you're in a metropolitan area, I encourage you to do this. But all of our youth groups once a month got together and we did a service project at one of the corps and then did something fun. So I remember we did a lock-in and we painted the corps building at Glendale. In Chandler, we pulled a bunch of, we had some houses and we got to kind of do a demolish it. Before demolishing and renovating were popular, we got to take, sledgehammers and had a lot of fun with that in a big dumpster. And then we went to a water park. I remember at Phoenix South Mountain, before it was a croc, we did something in their yard, but it was all the kids from the different corps got to know each other. So when it came time for camp and youth councils and stuff, they had been spending once a month together. And so having a good time. Also in the Southwest, we had a gospel choir and right, Harriet? And it even took people who couldn't sing very well, i.e. me. And we had a lot of fun with that gospel choir, even got to sing at Congress in Atlanta. So woo, woo, shout out. So it was a lot of fun. But if you're in a metropolitan area, working with other youth workers took a huge burden off everybody's shoulders. But now that I'm an old major, I'm tired and I'm looking for new ideas because I'm tired.
Sounds
and
fun.
I think that's part of what we're wanting from this group, is to be able to connect different youth workers throughout the territory to share those ideas, and to be able to say like, hey, I'm like in the area, like we can connect, because like really I feel like there is so much beauty in being able to connect corps from different divisions, from different territories. I think that it's really good to just, especially with how connected the Salvation Army is already, to continue to encourage more of those connections and supporting each other and building off of each other. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's a great example, because when I was in Portland, there is a DY, there were 4 corps in the area and they would do it quarterly. Actually started quarterly teen, we do it quarterly teen night with the 4 corps. It could be worship, it could be games. We did dodgeball. I know Luke just mentioned that dodgeball. We did a dodgeball competition. In fact, for Cascade, I think I saw Sylvia Smoes, she was a DY up there most recently. This dodgeball tournament, which we copied from WIR years ago, was happening at the youth retreat every single year because everybody loved it so much. People would come dressed up. We gave out this big fancy trophy and stuff. And it was really cool to see people like year after year wanting to come back for that. So if you have questions on some of these, make sure you see who's writing it, and maybe you can write them. Kat is in the one with the chicken golf, which was really hilarious to watch. I watched that one. And then looks like electronic electronic fasting force for young people. That's a good one. And like one of the ones Jim mentioned too, the dodgeball is not just having the young people, but having different generations, people coming in. And somebody else mentioned the Silver Crest. So it's cool when you can have some of that intergenerational ministry. That's really good. I just have one more thing to say, and then we'll get back to the questions before we close. Wrapping this up, just saying, kind of in summary, I guess, it's some of the things I shared is we should always remember the purpose of our youth group. Why are we getting together? Kind of having that defined and reminded of ourselves why we come together, and then deciding these are the things we will always have when we meet. For me, it's community, having relationships, fun in a safe place, and having sound biblical teaching. So if we're going on an outing, for example, we will usually not obviously have a Bible lesson because we're going to be out golfing or whatever the thing is. But most of the time when we're on our own property and doing kind of our regular program, we would always have that. And then always being planned out, have a plan for the year, for 6 months, for 3 quarters, and then for every month of the year, so that you kind of know where you are. I didn't say this earlier, but if you need help from people, talk to them way ahead of time. If you're going to be doing a lock-in, for example, and you're going to need more adults, make sure you're asking for that help way ahead of time. And then lastly, I didn't say this earlier, but I just really appreciate you guys for all that you do with youth. Working with teenagers is scary for a lot of people, and you guys are out there brave doing that day in and day out. Sometimes it's hard to get feedback from teenagers, but the work that you do with them really, really goes a long way. So thank you for what you do. Keep doing it. God is using you to make an impact in the lives of people. Summary, if you want to finish up with if there's any questions.
So we have just about 15 minutes left. So we'll just kind of open up for any questions that people may have. Maybe it's something in particular when it comes to teen nights or just working with teens in general. Feel free to ask the question, whether that be in the chat, and I can be your voice for you, or if you want to ask it directly to Emmanuel. But really, we want to just, if you have an idea or an answer to the question, feel free to unmute and share. So we'll just leave the last 15 minutes for that, and then we'll sign off at 2. Or we can keep sharing ideas as well. That works.
I'm sorry, I missed the question. What was the question?
We're just opening up the time for questions. So if people have questions that they want to ask, or ideas that they want to share, or just tidbits of information, this is just an open time now for that.
Well, I just wanted to say regarding teenagers and also all kids that go to school, sometimes I try to be really intentional because I can get really impatient, but to try to come at it from their perspective, even though I've been at work all day long, they've been at school being bossed at all day long. It's very regimented for them, and probably doing 8 out of 10 things that they don't want to do, assignments, group projects, different things like that. And so when they come to church, same reason why we don't like the term Sunday school, right? Because it's not very inviting to them, right? And so to just be gentle with them, give them a space to like talk to their friends, to hang out. Because like Captain Emmanuel and Summer said, is chances are they haven't really been on their phones all day long. They've been in a locker, or they've been doing homework or really hard math or something like that. So provide a safe place for them to be with some good treats, and they will, like, I think eventually open up and warm up, and then you'll convince them all to be your best friends, or at least that's my goal. I don't know. But I think to just remember where they're coming from, that it's been a long day for them, and it's been a long day for you, but you're an adult and you can gather those feelings, and they're like 13 and probably can't. So to just be gracious with them.
We have a question in the chat. They asked, are there any more opportunities to get discounts for amusement parks for like a Salvation Army night? Does anybody know?
Talk to your HR. Your HR should have all of that information.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. A lot of those might actually come through DHQ. So HR or development. I know, say in Sacramento, we had a good relationship with the Sacramento Kings, the basketball team there, and we would get tickets to take our teams. A lot of places, if you work through DHQ, they might already have contacts. Or if they don't have contacts, sometimes just calling and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm calling from the Salvation Army. We serve, underprivileged kids. Can you help us out? A lot of them will be able to do something.
I can also share that at my corps that they had, not my current corps. I'm originally from the Eastern Territory, so it's different. But so one of my original corps, they actually applied for grants for different things and were able to get a lot of money for like art supplies and just stuff like that. So really like do research on what kinds of grants are available, because maybe there are grants out there for teen nights for like you to go to like an amusement park. And yeah, I think really it's just asking the questions and doing research of like, oh, what opportunities are there? Because there's a good chance that there are opportunities and that we would get them because we are such a well-known nonprofit organization.
Yeah, in some of the local things, I know I keep talking about pizza. You can tell I love pizza, not just my kids. In one of our corps, there was like a Papa John's that gave us a day-old pizza that was frozen. So we had pizza almost every teen night, and it always got eaten. And it was free to us. And then we'd also get day-old Chipotle food and day-old Starbucks food, and the teens always ate all of it.
I have a thought. I don't know if they're still doing this because I haven't done it in a while, but the Points of Light Foundation, if you had a big volunteer event, and i.e. Christmas, and or Thanksgiving dinner or something like that, and you registered with Point of Light Foundation and people could sign up to volunteer on your project, they were offering like Disneyland tickets and a couple of things. It would be like 2 or 3, and then you could use those Disneyland tickets in a not raffle, sorry, we don't gamble, but like as a prize or whatever. So I haven't used them in a long time, but the Points of Light Foundation volunteer, but you got to have like capacity for like 200 volunteers. There is a threshold for what kind of tickets you can get, but it's also a way to generate volunteers who would never look at the Salvation Army webpage to volunteer if you use that volunteer management software. But yeah, it's a way to generate volunteers, especially if you have a big event.
That's really good. That's really good. Sorry, one more thing just came up. We didn't really get into this, like, what do you usually use for teaching on your teen night? And some corps do corps cadets, some corps do kind of like figure out whether we're doing a book of the Bible. I also know corps that use the Orange Sunday School curriculum. So for example, if you have XP3 middle schoolers, you use that on Sunday, and you have the XP3 high schoolers on your teen night. So that's an option. Or maybe you don't actually have any teens coming to Sunday school, but you're already still paying for the material. And it's really, really great. One of my favorite things I've seen with the Orange Sunday School material for teens is the topics are really current. It's not just stuff that was written 5 years ago. It's things that are really, really contemporary. So I'm not sure what you usually use, but if you're looking for something to use and you're not already having the same group of kids, because sometimes you might have a teen group and teens on Sunday, but they're not the same kids, you could have some, double use of the same material.
Yeah, for teen night material, like I haven't used Orange for teen night. It's not because, all right, yeah, I'll talk to you later. It's not because I don't like Orange. It's just like I went to, what was it, UIWI, and I was able to get a hold of their toolkit for leadership development with the kids, and it's literally like it's like 6 different series inside of it, and like the teaching element is, from what I've seen, it's night and day difference from what I was using before. Because with this, it's a little paper the kids get. We go through the questions, they watch a video, and I'm actually getting feedback on the video that we just went through with the kids. It's kind of like it opens them up to this point where they're just vulnerable enough to just start asking questions. And then the leader guide on it for me, it's so, Urban Youth Workers Institute, that's exactly it. Yeah, like the leaders workbook, it has all of the, like, okay, diving deep. So we'll talk about this passage of scripture right now, okay? Then you can look up that passage of scripture, and then you can go on from there. And it just like it takes like, so what I try to set aside like 45 minutes for our biblical practice, our biblical little session. It takes that 45 minutes and like makes it go almost an hour. So that's something that I would recommend is Urban Youth Workers, and I have like a link to it if somebody would like to try it out.
Yeah, if you wanted to send that link to me, I can then share it with everybody. And I think I'm going to try to condense some of the ideas from this video into maybe some resources, whether that be an infographic or just like a little summary, and share it along with the link. So if anybody has any other resources that they think would be good to share, maybe the link to that volunteer site, just anything like that, if you don't mind sending it to me, and then I can share it with everybody. Yeah, and I think that those kinds of resources are super great, Orange and this Urban Youth Workers Institute stuff. And I think what's really important to remember as a youth worker and as like a teacher, because that's what you're doing, is you're teaching these kids, is that even though you're given curriculum, and curriculum is super awesome, and it's always great when you can, you don't have to do the work for something, that every time that you are given content, that you can never just take it as it is. You always want to adjust to the needs of the youth that are sitting with you, whether that be what their personal experience is, what questions might apply to them. So even just like Orange curriculum, me and Captain Emmanuel taught the cadets on it, and it was all about circus stuff. And I've done gymnastics stuff, so I was able to connect it by adding a video of a gymnastics thing that I did. And being able to personalize content, you can never just take it as it is, as much as sometimes that's the easy way. It's always good to adjust content to fit the needs of the kids, to fit our understanding of things, and to really cater it to the audience. So that's just a general rule of thumb that I try to use whenever even the Corps Cadet content. So it's good. It's always good to do. Yeah. Any other questions or ideas?
Yeah, so I have one big one. So I went to the National Seminar of Evangelism, and honestly, I had to repent because I was like, wow, we need to be gospel centered. You know what I mean? What's the use of all this biblical teaching if these kids honestly don't know the gospel? And with that, it's also empowering the kids to share the gospel too. Because you know what I mean? Because you look at the church, and we're meant to be equipping our people, right? So when I look at this youth group, I'm like, how can I equip these people to share the gospel? Because that's what it comes down to. Because I could teach them, we're gonna learn about anger tonight, or we're gonna learn about this or that tonight. But what's the use if they don't know the gospel? Because it's the power of God that saves. And it's like we're almost setting them up for failure, or setting them up just to show up to church on Sundays and not actually be part of the body. So one big thing about my youth thing is just really just sharing the gospel with them and trying to empower them to share this with others. So practically one, and also I'm sorry, this is my brag on moment. I didn't really do any cool stuff that you guys did, but share with you that the school actually
Yes. There's a lady that called in, said she was.
Yeah. Anyway, so I wanted to let you know that so people from the school came to visit me because over here there's a lot of racism with my kids. So they're Micronesian, and a lot of Micronesian people here are very badly discriminated against. So they get into fights with other kids just because of that. So the teachers from a public school came to me and like, what can we do? They always talk about the Salvation Army and the stuff that you're doing there. So what is it? So frankly, I told the teachers, like, you need the gospel in the school. And I'm trying to equip these kids to be the light in that time. So to wrap it up, one of the kids got into a fight at the school, a big drama, almost like a mob thing, really bad. So he comes to our youth group. So he came back to school on Monday, and the teachers told me that he went up to the boy, apologized, and even hugged the boy. And so we came up with this idea with the teachers where I would be going to the school and give away some free pizza with the kids, right? And so I asked the kids, are you guys willing to go give food to the people who hate you? And they said, yeah, let's go next week. But I said, oh, hold on, kids. We need to get the okay from the principal. But my whole point is we want to transform these kids' lives, and it's only going to be through the gospel of Jesus Christ. And just sticking to the basics, just prayer, getting into the word, and just sticking to the gospel, because it's the power of God that saves. So, yeah, amen.
Thanks for sharing, Manu. It's real powerful.
Okay, I think that we have enough time for maybe one more question or one more just idea of something to share. So anybody want to be our last person?
I think Manu was.
He really did leave it at where it is. It's that we need to be able to teach the gospel, and sometimes I think it's easy to overcomplicate it and to think that we have to have all of the fun and games. And I think that the games and the pizza and all of that stuff is a great it's a great attraction to get people in, but we need to make sure that what we're teaching is of substance and is really going to help our young adults. Like they're teenagers that are going to be young adults that are going to then be adults in the world. We have to be able to prepare them to be leaders in the church and leaders to their peers and all of the people around them. So thank you for sharing that. And with that, I guess we'll close. Next week, not next week, in 2 weeks, we're going to be hearing from Kayla Ogletree and Captain Leah Fowler about behavior management. So really be sure to jump on, and if you haven't signed up, you can go on and fill out the form again, and we can put you in on the behavior management session as well, and just all the other sessions. We're really excited. We have some really great guests coming soon, and we hope to see you in 2 weeks. So thanks everybody for joining. Have a good rest of your day. Hope to see you at another point.
God bless you.
Thank you.